So, welcome back from the break. Getting a new fresh cup of coffee. And I'm Aarnimetsa from pokerarena.com, and we are going to carry on in our quest in 180 mans. Like, there is going to be a small discussion on a stat, like fold to flop c-bet, and as I opened up in chat that the problem is that that's going to be a really slow statistic to converge. Like, if we are having players that are regs, they are not going to get that often to a situation where they are defending by calling and then getting c-bet. But in the how often do they c-bet on the flop? That's going to be a statistic that you can get a sample size on. But the fold flop to c-bet, that's something that I think it's going to be really. It's going to be probably one of the slowest stats that I have seen people use in tournaments. And that's something that I have never, for tournament players, I have never suggested using it, but most of tournament players like using it probably because I think both Poker Tracker and Hold'em Manager are using it in their default tournament HUD. And the default tournament HUD is the exact same HUD that it's a default cash HUD. So I think that's something that could be improved upon. And if it wouldn't be a default stat, I wouldn't think that people would use it that much, because it doesn't make that much intuitive sense to use it, in my humble opinion. In here we are needing about 37%. I think we are getting it. I know that we are behind, but the question is that are we behind, or are we close behind, or are we far behind? If we are not far behind, the king 8 off will be a good call. That's probably also a hand that we should mark. Review. The ace is probably the only card that I don't do a small value bet on. With the ace on the river in here, I think that it's going to hit our opponent a bit too often. How the hell can we be in this situation? It's going to be close. It's going to be close. And now it's time to pat myself in the back. Like, I'm thinking that we are getting something like, we might be right about 40% of the time. And if you're right about 40% of the time, we are making money with the call. And if we are more rarely right, then we are going to get into problems. But it's, in a way, it's interesting. Like, VPIP and PFR are going to be stats that are having like almost the equal sample sizes when you can trust those. But like fold to flop c-bet and flop c-bet, those are going to have wildly different sample size requirements. And probably for like fold to flop c-bet, it requires something like, I think 500 hands is going to be a pretty good guesstimate. Might be also 1000 hands. So it's going to be a stat that you can mainly use against. It's going to be a stat that you can mainly use against other regs. But I think that there are still stats, something like 3-bet stat is something that will like click like 5 times more rarely than VPIP and PFR. Also, a lot of steal stats are going to be pretty good because they are you are having one of those almost every orbit. And I probably also have stats that are not going to be the complete optimal stats, but it might be that I have learned to use some of the stats, so then it's going to be harder to change away from those before. So it's going to be like all in one way. It's also going to be about habit with the stats. Okay, this was outside the tables, but it's something that you should really like know this on. You should know of all of the stats that you are choosing to put in your HUD. You should know the sample sizes. You should know about how many hands do you need with every stat that you have on your HUD. About how many hands do you need that when you can like first glance at those, and the next time like how many hands do you need that you can like really trust those. And I think that for most HUD users, like it will be even harder to ignore what's in your HUD if there is a number. I have been toying around with the idea of having the HUD stats being black until I have like at least five ticks on something, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. In a way, it would make sense that then I wouldn't make hasty decisions. And it's like one point in, like, I know that how my brain works, and that's like one reason that even though it makes intuitive sense to have like decimals in the 3-bet stat when it's usually going to be a single digit stat otherwise. But the problem is that our brain will always interpret that when we are having more decimals, it will interpret that the data is going to be more accurate, even though it won't be any more accurate. And that's going to be quite, especially with something like 3-bet, because it's going to be a stat that you are more rarely getting more ticks. It should, like, even though it wouldn't make sense, it would probably be better if you are having decimals on VPIP and PFR, so you would know to trust those one more than if you would have like decimals on 3-bet. That happens more rarely. But that's going to be more a psychological point and not about like not a point in the game side. But like basically it's going to be that one of the most important things in these 180 mans is going to have like a really solid game in a vacuum. And what does it mean? That it would mean that you wouldn't have too many situations where you are left wondering on what should you do in this spot. And you would have like a good idea on what to do against an average player, and from that on you should also know like what would an average player, what kind of stats would an average player stats look like, and then you would know to like how should I change my. This is actually, I think this is quite close. Should I open the king 10 suited or not? But it's more like the stats are going to be about adjusting more, and not like you are only playing against those stats. That, like, if I'm seeing here, for example, that this guy steals from cutoff like 50% of the time, I don't think that his range is going to be 50% from the cutoff. Forever OD, I think that I'm going to be good in there with Ace Queen. I think that his range is going to be way wider in that spot. I'm not that tired, so I'm getting some more games. Some more turbos still, so let's make this a longer MTT night. I have been putting this into a back burner into when I should do the MTT night, as usually these games make more sense when you are playing more of them in a row. In here against a really aggressive looking random, like this is from general stats. Like pocket tens is going to be pretty much an edge case, but when we are against a really aggressive looking guy, then it's going to be an easy decision on that point on stats, and even though we are only having 14 hands of stats. And it's not going to be like on one single stat, but it's going to have the whole bucket of stats there. That's the important one. Like every stat that he pretty much has paints a picture of a really aggressive opponent. Did I get more tables? Yeah, I did. In this, like, the King 9 off is going to be icky spot in a way. And it's going to be icky spot in a way because there are going to be two really small stacks that we pretty much need to call. I just believe that we are not going to get 3-bet that often. Like, in a way, it's going to be easier to like start to get know to the people's MTT stats, because in MTTs a lot of the time we are not going to have anything complicated, or the situation is not going to be that complicated in general. So like in sit and goes, there are going to be more like, how do you play in this ICM situation that you need to worry about. Now there's like a good mix of action in my part. Might be a bit too much still. Like now I'm getting focused more on the poker, and I'm having a lot of tables going on, so I'm having like decisions all the time. So it feels good, but it might be harmful for talking about the decisions here. And this is like we are having the wrong guy stats here. I think that this is going to be one of the nasty spots, and this spot gets like de-nasted instantly. Like when you are hitting the set here, it's going to feel pretty nice, and it's going to be like the situation is not nasty anymore. It's going to be a really easy spot to play. Like, what's going to be the way that I'm going to get most of my opponent's chips in? And in general, I like it when the game goes to that direction. I can't even be angry about that. Oh well. I tried to get most of my opponent's chips in and I succeeded. So I feel like a winner already. Unfortunately, feeling like a winner doesn't mean that you actually won. It's going to be a situation where it's going to be really surprising if we don't get all of our money in when opponent is having top set and I'm going to have the second highest set. So, oh well, he's going to have so rarely the top set. So it's going to be a good play for me to try to just get all the money in. On average, I'm going to have such great equity against our opponent's range. So. And this is going to be a mid pocket pair pretty often. No, it's ace jack, but something like pocket sixes or sevens we could have shoved here pretty easily. And you have seen here, I have been at the chip lead and pretty high in the games. But it doesn't matter if you are at the chip lead at one point of the game. It only matters if you are having the most chips at the end of the game, or at which point you get eliminated. You don't get any style points. Oh, 6,666 chips left after ante. It's like the stack of the devil. And the hand is quite devilish as well. Like the Jack 9 is, it's like it's blending onto the table already. In here, I'm just trying to organize the stacks in a way that we are going to get most probably all the stacks in and harder for our opponents to play. This guy that calls with the biggest stack with ace 6. I don't know, he should probably get a medal. And that's pretty nice. Getting it all in with pocket queens in a four-way pot and finishing not last on the four-way pot. What's up with that? I would have understand pretty much every other option, but not like this guy winning with the shortest stack, this guy coming second with the second shortest stack, and then this guy coming third. We are getting third with or fourth with our pocket queens. I don't know, perhaps we should have with the pocket jacks, perhaps we should have gotten a value bet in. I'm a bit unsure. That might be some missed value there. Of course, our opponent bet into us, so, and that would like, it wasn't a bluff for him. It's like he misread the value of his hand. And Lubas asked, like, can you explain how many weaker players there should be in an MTT tournament where it's about 10% rake? I don't know. Like generally it's probably going to be really hard to find MTTs that wouldn't be profitable to play for a good player. I would need to think that if it's going to be a profitable sit and go to play, like if there is going to be 1/3 of the field is going to be weaker players, I'm thinking that would be for sure enough. Might be even less because there's going to be so much spots where you can apply your edge in a long MTT tourney. But I don't have like any formulas ready here. I would expect that if you are having somewhere around somewhere around 4 to 5 EV adjusted big blinds per 100, I think that's going to on average be enough to beat the rake. But it's going to also, like, if you are winning a lot of money or a lot of big blinds at the early stages where there is not a lot of money moving, it might be that it's not enough. But if you are like having a pretty flat distribution of how much or how many big blinds do you win, I think that about 4 to 5 is going to be about the level where you are going to. I don't like having a four-way pot with 9 kings suited. And now I'm like the strong hands that I can make would be the flush draw hands or two pair type of hands. And well, I'm running good, I think. On that spot. So we are 26th, we are in the money. In here we are also in the money, in the rebuy, and we are worse off with a 50k stack here than we are with the 20k stack here. Just goes to show you on how much the difference between the chips in the game there is. But like in these $3.5 rebuys, we can see that and in here, this guy looks like a nit, but I have marked him as a reg, so he's going to be positionally aware. Uh, how much do we need? 40% ish. I don't think we get it. It's close still. Really close. And in MTTs, it's going to also be like, how can you calculate on how many players would need to be weaker players to just beat the rake? I don't think that it's also going to be a correct way to do about it because you're going to need to think like, how much am I going to lose to an average reg, or am I going to win against an average reg? Am I going to win against an average reg? Am I going to win against and how much am I going to win against a weaker player? But I must say that the amount, like 1/3 of the field, I used my trusty Stetson Harrison method and just put a hat and just, this is a good number out of the hat. And like, it's the Stetson method, and the Harrison is just there to like inspire some confidence in the method, because in science all the good methods are named with at least 2 inventors. And you can even do an essay in university, and you can say there that you have used the Stetson Harrison method in getting the number, and there will be profs that aren't even asking about the methodology. So I can say that it works. And of course, now that I have explained it, you don't trust in my numbers anymore. Udo Melo. This is pretty much the worst flop in getting a random guy out of his hand. Like, just not going to happen. And not even trying to find out enough. Not even trying to find out fold equity against my opponent there. I think Jack 9 off is going to be strong enough to be shoving here. I think with a shove we are going to get more fold equity than with a small raise here. But it's going to be like dependent on stack sizes on when do we get more fold equity and when do we get less fold equity by. Like, the less chips we have, the more fold equity we are going to get with a small raise. And the more chips we are having, the more fold equity we are going to get with a shove. And it's going to be dependent on games. It might be between somewhere between, I think, 4 and 6 big blinds, the stack size, on where the 2 different fold equities converge. But generally, it's like most of my actions on the tables, they are going to be in a way, they are going to be really simple to describe, like where do they come from. And it's like thinking about what would I like my opponent to do, how would my opponents do biggest mistakes against me. Now this is going to be quite crappy. Of course, we are still having chips, so we'll hope to. We are hoping for a comeback here. And this is one of those spots that where I think that we are going to clearly get more fold equity by min raise than a shove. And what a surprise, we are the last stack still standing. What a surprise. With about 2 big blinds, that's not going to usually be stack size that you want to have. against a player that opens a lot, like 5-jack suited is going to be for sure worth defending. When he bets big on ace king 7, I think that he's going to have me beat too often. We're going to need about 33% with 10-8 off. I think we are going to get it. 42%, it's going to be good. Good enough, good enough. And we are hitting a great hand. Not just a good hand, but a great hand. But those in general, like, we know that we are behind, but we are getting such good pot odds in the situation that we just need to call. I find out that those are going to be, or those are usually really hard for most players, those situations, to like have enough courage to do the brave decision on those points. And even though you know that you are behind, but you need to like quantify on how much do you need to be, or how much, if you are behind but just a little, is it still going to be fine or not? But one of those things, it's only going to go well if you have calculated it out, since that's something that's usually really easy to make mistakes in there. And if you are making mistakes where you are folding too much, those are usually going to be harder mistakes to spot. And why those are going to be harder mistakes to spot, like your brain is going to remember more often if you are spectacularly losing something than if you are just like, if you are folding, you don't have a really a high like memory footprint of the hand later on. And Kauris asked, can you play the 10.3k high roller? No. It's that request is simple to answer. I think Caleon is playing one of the really big ones, like 2.1k tournament on this week hoop. But I'm not going to go for the 5k or 10k V coops. I don't think that, like, those games are also going to be really slow with their structure, and I don't think that I'm going to have edge against that field that's going to be there on those games. The edges or the field is going to be consisting mostly of cash players and that are having way more experience in deep stack situations. And of course, it wouldn't be good bankroll management either. Like, if I'm thinking about how big of a bankroll you would require to go for the 10k events, it would be like, even if that would be the pinnacle of the buy-ins that you are playing, I think that you would at least require like 1 million of bankroll, and even that might be tight if you are not selling shares of your action. Probably you would like to have more than 1 million of bankroll to play those in the long run. And that's usually also why the live tournaments are going to be so hard to consistently make money, because you are going to require a huge bankroll, and even then you are going to need to play a lot of events if you are traveling to those. And really good point from Virpa that also people are leak finding by usually people are league finding by finding the biggest losing hands. I don't even think that people are league finding that much going for the biggest losing hands. Like I don't think that people are aiming to get those hands. I think that people are just like they are remembering those hands most vividly, and usually if you lose money on some hand, then you will also be more likely to mark it and more likely to think about the hand later on. But when I have seen, like I have done a lot of private coaching sessions where we are thinking about the hands that the player that we are coaching is has marked the hands, or player that I'm coaching has marked the hands before. Usually like 9 out of 10 hands are going to be hands that the player has lost in. And that's really consistent. Like I have never seen a player that would mark more hands where he had won than more hands that where he had lost. And there are I know players that are have like only marked hands that they have lost, and also players that are like my my estimation would be that somewhere around 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 hands that are marked hands are hands where player has lost chips. What's my normal average buy-in? Whoa. I'm thinking right now it's going to be close to $15. Like mainly I'm playing right now. I'm playing $15 games. And that's like a level where I'm getting good action in. The spin and goes when they were introduced, they made a huge dent in how many sit and goes there are running. Or there are probably even way more sit and goes running, but I think like it might be that there are more spin and goes running than any other sit and goes combined. I actually think that that's probably even like logical that there are probably now more spin and go games running than regular type of sit and go games. And if I remember it correctly, it was like Amaya's quarterly report that I read this on, that right now tournament poker, or after they have introduced spin and goes, tournament poker makes more out of their like overall revenue, and overall profits are coming from running tournaments. Are coming from tournaments and not from cash games anymore. And Danita says that he started with it, so like it's funny you should mention, because he started by organizing hands by the biggest losing hands. And in a way, that's also like people are usually they want to go through like really complicated hands, but you might be leaking a ton of equity in a situation that you don't leak that much in a single hand, but you are going to be in a situation where you are going to be in the situation so often that you are going to leak a lot of money that way. Like even a small leak, but if it's happening really often, like if you are having a small leak worth of like 1% ROI, but on average you are having one of those every game that you are running in 180 mans, it's going to be a huge mistake. Like if you are having a one mistake that you are like losing a buy-in, but it happens like once every 200 games, it's going to be more spectacular to fix that kind of a mistake, but it's going to be doubly more important to fix the small mistake that happens in every game than the really big mistake that happens once in every 200 games. And Virpa says that it makes more sense in cash games. I don't think that it makes sense in cash games either. I don't think that only looking at your worst losing hands would be productive in cash games. Like, it would be better than doing nothing. But if we are like testing different ideas by is it better than doing nothing, we are going to get some pretty interesting ideas going, because there are a lot of stuff that you can do in poker that are going to be better than doing nothing. And there are going to be some stuff that you can be doing that's worse than doing nothing. That you can think about that you are now working on improving, and it might be that it's worse than doing nothing. But I think that even in cash games there will be better ways to improve your game than looking at the worst losing hands. And Virpa says, I think that it's going to be good for beginners because there are going to be a lot of blunders, tilt, etc. Yeah, but like even in tilt, you are usually, when you are having like a monkey tilt, that you are just randomly mashing every button that there is, you know it already. And if you are like going with and if you are making a big blunder, you usually know it pretty quickly. But it's going to be like, if you are in tilt, you just might start to open a lot wider, or like flat calling a ton more, that it's going to result in a lot of small leaks rather than the spectacular big blowouts. So like I even think that most tilt is going to be like, if you are tilting in a way that you are just randomly mashing buttons and making your opponents or shoving chips all in like a madman, then you are going to have problems and you are probably never going to win money from poker. But most of the guys are going to have more subtle tilts. And like more subtle tilt means that like it wasn't that far, or it wasn't that long ago that I thought that I'm not having a tilt problem because I can like if I'm playing unoptimal, I just quit my session. But after reading the mental game of pokers, I noticed that also that it will make it really hard to increase volume if I'm always ending the session when I feel that I'm not playing my best. Of course, it will be good for my ROI, but it's not going to be good in the long run in how much I can earn per day. Or like for improving in how much you can earn per day, it's going to be a very important, especially in pretty much every tournament poker format. It's going to be very important in increasing the amount of games that you increasing the volume. Like tournament poker is one of the kings of volume games, that playing big volume makes a lot of sense. Or it's almost a requirement. Random player from Mongolia limped. I think that it's going to be a good spot to be shoving. We are having okay equity even if we are trapped. But in general, I think that we are just going to get too many chips. And when it's a random player that's limping, I'm almost always thinking that my opponent is going to be at least slightly bad there. And I don't even think that we are disagreeing that much with Virpa. I think that Virpa, I pretty much know that he's a smart guy. And when he's a smart guy, I pretty much know that he knows his stuff in improvement. But that's just something that I pretty much feel pretty strongly about, that what is usually good for improvement and what is not, or what is productive in improvement, what is not. Ouchie. Probably going to ship a lot of chips to Mongolia. It's like Genghis Khan, please have my chips. Trying to like register to pretty much every 180 player game that will start, and still not getting more than 8 tables going on, so I must say on the other screen things are not going that well, or things have been going better at some other times. Having not flushed there and wondering if I'm going to lose against a straight flush. That's one of the nice feelings. Usually you can't even be angry about when you're losing to a straight flush. More tables! And trying to build up like a buffer of tables right now before the break starts. But we'll see. Like, if I'm going to win a tournament, it's going to be in a game that will last about 2 hours. Ace-9 off probably won't be good enough, but Ace-9 suited I would be shoving here. In these kind of cases where there's already a player all in with a really short stack, we need to be way tighter than in general in small blind versus big blind situations, as we can't get the antes and we can't get most of the big blind stolen even if our big blind folds. But something like ace jack is going to be way too strong with just one player behind. And Virpa says that could you describe it like infernal even. It's like I'm thinking that people wouldn't be understanding if I'm going to be explaining about infernal card check run here. All the Finns would know exactly what I would be talking about, but all the others would be pretty much left in the dark. Like, as this is a stream for major audiences, like we can talk like Finns are really creative usually with. There will be occasional uses of the word like fuck or vittu in Finnish. But when things go wrong, it's going to be something more creative. Like vittujen kevät ja kyrpien takatalvi. Like the spring of cunts and the backwards winter of cocks. And that probably won't make any more sense, but it will. If you are thinking about the infernal check run, it's going to be exactly one Finnish flying sentence applied to poker. So yeah, if Finns are asking if your run has been infernal, they are asking if you have been running pretty damn horribly. There will be other Finnish sayings also that can be translated into English, but that could even make sense. Like katosi niin kuin pieru Saharaan. Vanished like a fart in Sahara. If something is lost or gone missing. And Kaulis says that more coffee. Probably way more coffee. And that might even be that why I'm not usually doing these long sessions. And you can probably now see my desperation in getting the tables up. Like now we are getting the real starting tables here. Like this is my latest stage game outside of these three. Kauris, you are from Pori. You should understand. Actually, now I'm unregging to all of the games that would be starting because it's break time. Oh, this will be an epic break if you are going to translate other Finnish sayings in our chat. I wholeheartedly agree. But now it's time for a break for me. We'll see in 5 minutes.